Hello everyone. So today we're going to take a look at employment data that's recently published by US government. So let's take a look. Here is the news on the CNBC website, and it said US payrolls increased by 150,000 in October, less than expected. Okay, so there's a mixed kind of message. One is that like the new jobs are created, but less than expected. But another one is the unemployment rate rose to 3.9%. So, okay, so these two metrics here. And there's one chart in this article, and this is a bar chart, how much of the jobs newly created compared to the months before, right? So here, the last month, it was like basically October 2023, 150,000 jobs being added. So here is actually the original announcement. So this is like every month, they release employment-related metrics, bunch of metrics, by the way. And then it says here as well, we added 150,000 plus jobs, but however, unemployment rate changed little at 3.9%. So there are two things to note this information. So number one, two different types of met data. So one is household survey data, and the other one is establishment survey data. Okay, this is kind of confusing because both of the data sets produce similar metrics like employment numbers. Without understanding the difference between these two, you might get confused. So I'm going to explain a little quickly about what these are. Okay, so like one is household survey, that's the left-hand side, and the right-hand side, establishment survey data. And household is literally basically something about the household, or more like focusing on the individuals. Okay, if they have or they don't have jobs, which means unemployed. And the right-hand side is more like from the perspective of the companies or organizations or institutions and government agencies and so on. But that doesn't have like farms or a self-employed people. This is more like focusing on the organization. I think the most significant difference between these two is that left-hand side, the method. Let's focus on the method here. Left-hand side, they picked like 60,000 randomly sampled, and then based on that data, they estimate the entire population. Okay, so this is more like a sampling stuff, right? And they literally call them or email them and ask questions like, are you working? If not, like how long you're not working? And then the right-hand side, this is more like actually they take the payroll data or salary information from the organization, because the organization have to report that type of information to the government anyway. So get those data, and based on that, they come up with like employment numbers or like earning or working hours and so on. Okay, so that means left-hand side, household survey, any metrics come out from that is something that more like an individual level. And right-hand side, any metrics coming out from that is focusing on the company level. Okay, so like what kind of metrics you get out of this? On the left-hand side, for example, you hear a lot of the unemployment rate. That's actually left-hand side. Okay, so that because like you interview people and then they said, oh, I don't have a job, I have not been working for the last 3 months and so on. Okay, but also the employment numbers, which means like how many people have the jobs, that metric comes out from this household survey too. And that's the part is kind of confusing because that same kind of metrics comes from the establishment survey, right-hand side as well. By the way, we were looking at that on that CNBC news. It says that new jobs are created 150,000. That's actually coming from establishment survey, but similar data can be obtained from the household survey. I know this is kind of getting confused, but right-hand side, again, from the company's organization's perspective. Okay. And then there's some kind of earning and working hours and so on. Another thing to make difference between these two is the left-hand side, again, is for focusing on the individual. That means you can get the data like sex, like male, female, or ages, ethnicity, and so on. It's really depend on focusing on individual level data. Right-hand side, they don't have such data. Instead, they have the industry data. For example, this is more like a government employment or healthcare employment, or service sector, the manufacturing sector, and so on. That's the big different characteristics between these two. So having said that, let's take a look at here. So again, this 150,000 jobs created, that information from the company or the establishment survey data, so more like organizational data. See this here, increased 150,000 jobs. But the unemployment data, like a 3.9%, that's unemployment rate, that's coming from household data. That's why it's here. Okay. So now what's tricky part about that is this household survey data also produce employment numbers. We're going to take this employment number data from establishment survey data and also the employment numbers from household survey data. And we're going to compare these two and see if two stories align together or maybe contradicting. To answer the question, I'm going to grab those two from Fred. I'm sure like you guys are already familiar with. Otherwise, please take a look at the past seminars I have done, like how to get the data from Fred. I'm going to use that same system, which is hosted by America's central bank FRB, and then there are tons of thousands of like economical metrics, including this employment-related metrics as well. So I'm going to use that and getting those data into the exploratory and combine them together, and then using the chart to visualize and the relationship between the two. Okay, so first I'm going to type employment and then find employment-related metrics here. And the first one to show up is all employee total non-farm. This is actually very, very common metrics. So I want you to remember. Okay, total non-farm meaning non-farm. So farms are not included. Okay, so daily farm, that kind of farm are not included. So if I click on this, and then here's a chart, and all the way from the 1940 to the last month, 2023 October. And this data, all employee total non-farm, can you guess this one is coming from like an establishment or household? Which one? Well, you can actually see the answer here. The cities come from the current employment statistics establishment survey. Okay, so this is more like from based on the payroll records of data from the organization. So that's one side of the data, and the other side of the data, the household level data is here. This is employment level. Okay, and these two seems like going up, and then like how much increase or compared to September to October, right? And then this one, when you scroll down, you can see household survey. So it's important to check, where this data coming from. So now we know two metrics to get the data from. So let's go back to the first one. And what we need to do is this like an ID of the metric. So I'm going to copy and open the exploratory, and then like we're going to get that data. Okay. So like select the cloud apps, Fred, paste that ID, click run. I don't specify start or end date. So that means the whole data comes in. And that's okay for this one. And then I'm going to say this is the employment data, but this is more like an organizational stuff, right? So I'm going to just put that like an organization. And the data is here. Before I visualize this, I want to do one thing quickly. So this number, 29,000, this is not like 29,923 people. It's because when you look at the unit, it's actually 1,000 of persons. So I'm going to multiply 1,000 so that like, we don't have to deal with what actually this unit is anymore. Multiply 1,000, overriding existing columns, and then get this number. And this now, like we don't have to say like this is 1,000 or millions or anything like that. This number is literally 29,923,000 people. Okay, and then once we get this. First, I'm going to create a chart. It's very similar to the chart that we saw on the CNBC website, which is using a bar chart and then assign a date column. This is monthly data, and then y-axis the value. There are tons of bars, so it looks like an area chart. I want to limit this data to focus on kind of recent data. So from the year of the COVID, so 2020, let's look at that last 3 years. So I'm going to use a filter, and then later than or equal to, and then here 2020 0101. And then what we want to do is basically like, okay, it looks like a number is increasing, but how much increase compared to the months before? So to do, it's actually easy. Go into the y-axis and then quick window calculation, and then difference from previous. So I'm going to select this, and then this one is showing what's the change compared to the months before in this case. So increase or decrease. And obviously you can see the huge decrease around the COVID, when the COVID starts, right? So obviously the company had to shut down the businesses or close down. And so like a lot of people lost their jobs around that time. And then this time though, like I want to focus on like after this kind of COVID shock. By the way, like around this time, there was the last recession, right? So I want to focus on that. So maybe like let's go from like 2020 July, okay, and let's see like the trend better. So I'm going to change this to right now the 0101. So I'm going to change it to 0701. So it's from July. Okay. So now like here, look at that number here at the very end. It said 150,000, and that's the number of the jobs being added in October compared to the months before. Okay, and that number is aligned with message from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, so that's good. But that's not the purpose of this whole session here, right? What we want to do is this is for like establishment data, so the company or agency level data. We want to get the similar data, employment data for the individual level data. Okay, so to go back to the thread, and let's open this employment level. And you remember, this is household data. It's actually said here, household survey data. Again, same thing, copy this ID. And then from here, Cloud Apps, thread, paste that ID, and then get that data. And this is employment. And I'm going to just type it like individual. Okay, so as opposed to organization. Okay, and then same thing here. What I want to do is I want to multiply 1,000 so that like we don't have to guess like this is like 1,000 or millions. And override the existing column and click. Okay, looks good. And then what we want to do here is I want to actually combine them together. Any column header is actually fine, and just find this merge menu. And then from here, select the data frame. In this case, we want to merge this employment organization data. So here, and then run. And what just happened is this number is like 1,928 rows. Before that, it was only 900. There was only 910 rows. Now, after the merge, these two data frames are data being merged together. See this one is highlighted now. And then from the column header, if I click on the information icon, so these are the data frame names. Okay, so two data combined, so like that means we can go to the chart and then compare those two stats together. Okay, so what I mean by that is here, I'm going to just copy this chart. And then this chart right now, look at this pin. Pin is still pointing to the second step, which is before the merge step. And then, but we want to actually bring in the merge data together in this chart. So we have to bring this pin button to the third step where the merge happened. And this point though, like for example, this bar combine the two data frames there. I mean, two metrics, right? So one is the individual, one is the organization. That's not what we want. We want to separate those two, and then but side by side. We can use a color to separate. Use that like ID as a color. Now, employment individual is represented by the orange color. Employment by the organization represented by blue color. And then like, I'm going to select the side by side. Okay, so now we have those two charts used to be separated. Now we have one single chart to visualize those two metrics together. In this case, the difference from previous. Okay, and here though, like we can already see here, this orange color is going down. This is the individual level, right? Household data. And then we lost like 348,000. And but when you look at the organization level data, it looks like a plus 150,000. So here's a mismatch, right? So these two stories are not adding up. So now what is going on here? Two things I can think of. Okay. So number one is this is again going back to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the government website. And then scroll down. There's some kind of weird stuff here. It's at the very end. The change in total non-farm payroll employment for August, this is total non-farm payroll, that's actually the establishment survey. It's like organization or company level data, right? For August was revised down by 62,000. They said the number they reported for the August was overestimated. Another thing for the September, change for September was revised down 39,000, almost like 40,000. August and September, they overestimated. And it's actually not just August and September. They have been doing this for a while. Actually, like last, I don't know, as long as I know, like last 4 or 5, 6 months, they keep revising that numbers. And every time they revise, they don't actually go up. They actually go down, meaning they always overestimate. So how can you be sure this October number is not overestimated? But anyway, so that's the number one reason why these two employment numbers are, one from household, one from establishment are not matching up. Another one is more interesting. So here, this employment level data, again, this is a household survey. And then when you scroll down, this is kind of interesting. Here, employment situation, and then it says table A9. They collect various demographic data too, right? So this one, the one we are looking at is just one of many metrics from the household survey. And that means you can find some similar metrics, but slightly different based on the demographics and so on. And that's usually the table A lists those metrics. So if I click on this, so this one, like we are looking at a kind of overall data, okay? But then like you can go down, break down by the ages, you can break down by the men or women, and then also marital status as well. But one interesting stuff is here, multiple job holders. What does this mean? Well, when you had a job last month and then maybe this month, you had to have another job. Maybe like, you need to make extra money. So you got another job at a different, organization or different company or something like that. And those type of situation. So some people have like 2 jobs, some people have 3 jobs and whatever. And this is actually very important because let's take a look at here, total multiple job holder. As you can see, that number of the people have multiple jobs are increasing dramatically, like very quick, rapidly. And then the point here is that if I just zoom into the focus on this area. So October, we have 8,356. This is again, the unit is 1,000. So this is like 8,356,000. The 1 month before, September, is 8,151,000. So what's the difference between these two? So this is like 151, and then, so this is 356. So almost like 200,000 people start having, multiple jobs. So think about that. 200,000 people have now multiple jobs. And then when you look at here, these numbers, again, from the company's perspective, though, 150,000 jobs being created at the company side. Just think about that. So when you have Mike, and Mike been working at the company A, and then in October, he started working at company B on top of working at company A. Okay, but when you look at from the company level, company A will report exact the same number of the employee, right? But the company B will report, hey, we got 1 new job being created. And that's the number being accumulated here. So that's why that kind of situation is not showing up at the establishment here, this blue bar, but showing up on the orange. So why multiple job holders are increasing? First, like a job is kind of coming back to normal. But after that, well, the inflation is going on. If you happen to be the person who had to go month to month, like you had to use all the money you earned the previous month, and next month comes, you get the exact same amount of the earning or the salary, but you have to spend more because of the gas increase and electricity and all that. So therefore, like you need extra job to just to pay the rent. So I think that kind of situation is going on in America. So that's why, like in this case, we need to pay more attention to the unemployment rate. So let's take a look at the unemployment rate. So here I have the unemployment rate. Gray line is like a recession starting month. And then the blue line is unemployment rate. And the orange line is a 12-month moving average. Okay, so notice that it's always up to like a recession happen, like unemployment rate start going down, and which is good news because more people have jobs, right? However, the recession comes and the unemployment rate goes up. That totally makes sense. But right before the recession, so unemployment rate goes down, they kind of stops there and then actually change the trend. So most of recession times, like it's always like unemployment rate goes down and then stay at the bottom and then start changing the trend. And that's when the recession hits, right? I mean, the government report says unemployment rate little change. And I don't know what that little means. What that means 3.9%, but the previous month 3.8%. Hey, just 0.1% increase, right? Yeah, if you look at just one point of the data, just October or the September-October change, yes, that's just a small change. But the thing is the trend, right? We always have to pay attention to the trend. So trend is, so unemployment rate kind of stays at this level, okay? Not going down farther. Stay there and then start coming up. In the last few months, it started coming up. Okay. And then that trend is basically kind of confirm the trend that we have been seeing over the last few months. So even though 0.1% increase, but that's actually on the line of the trend. So it's not really the question of if recession will come. It's just a question of when recession will come. And then by looking at this chart, pretty soon or maybe foreseeable future. Well, but correlation is not the causation. So we have to be careful, but we are seeing some signals here. Okay, so this time we take the data from household and the establishment surveys. And sometimes when you look at the news and then they give you some numbers, but most of the time those information coming from the government, and then obviously government doesn't want to influence the market. So they're very careful in terms of the messaging. You have to dissect the numbers to understand what is really happening in the economy. And that's it for today. And thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.